Hey everyone, how are you all doing? I hope you've had an absolutely pleasant day. Honestly, I have, because we're talking about one of my favorite fanboys ever, Harman Smith, and he's come to enlighten us with some of his greatest opinions on Cyberpunk's Phantom Liberty DLC, and how it completely means nothing, because it's not on Nintendo. So I think we should start off by looking at the title of his video, because it all goes downhill from here. CD Projekt Red's Cyberpunk 2077 expansion Phantom Liberty releases to absolute crickets. That's right guys, no one's talking about this DLC whatsoever. And I think the top comment perfectly describes what everyone's thinking when they saw this video. Those are some pretty loud crickets. And you know, I think it's only fair that I show some more of these really loud crickets to show Harman that he's really just speaking out of his own ass. From both the base game and the DLC being in the top 10 sellers on Steam right now, and Cyberpunk as a whole being in the top 5 games most played on Steam concurrently right now. I think we can all agree that these are some incredibly loud crickets. And if Harman hasn't noticed them, I'm shocked he even notices anything that's going on with Nintendo. So I think without further ado, we should finally start watching his video with all the context I've given you about these incredibly loud crickets to see what arguments he has for this DLC being nothing.
Right now, we're in the early stages of game journalism hyping up Cyberpunk 2077.
Off to a good start. He seems to not understand what marketing and promotion of a product is. Should we expect this to get any better from here? No, not really. It's all gonna go downhill from here with his reasoning.
Phantom Liberty. That's right. The long-awaited DLC expansion for Cyberpunk 2077 is here, and it is going to save the game, so says the narrative.
Well, yes, it will save the game, because patch 2.0 and Phantom Liberty changed the game so much and made it for the better. So of course, it's going to help save the game and give the game longevity with new features and reworked features, because I can tell you this, I would rather play 2.0 and Phantom Liberty than anything before that.
And this has been a pervasive thing that's been circulating for the longest time. Like, game journalists assured us that, like, the patch was coming, the game would be playable, the DLC would, like, fix all of the problems, it would fix the base game, it would do this and do that, it would completely change the original ending, it would be, like, a completely new experience, right?
Well, guess what, Harman? They delivered on most of those features. I don't know where you got this whole revamp of the game to the point where it's going to be a completely new product. But no, they said they were going to revamp and fix most of the features in the game that were lacking, and add some stuff that were missing. It almost seems like you haven't played Cyberpunk, because you reference only one ending being a thing. When there are multiple endings, there are many variants of one ending, depending on which factions you side with or people that you meet, but overall, there are many endings, and for some reason, you can't fathom that.
This would save Cyberpunk 2077. In fact, Cyberpunk 2077 was already saved when the Netflix cartoon Cyberpunk Edge Runners came out, right? When that came out, and like, oh, that turned things around for CD Projekt Red. It saved the game.
Even though I've never watched Edge Runners, I know a lot of people said it was very good. Maybe one day I'll watch it. Probably never. I'm too lazy to watch anything. That show, from what I heard, incentivized a lot of people to get Cyberpunk, and especially at the time, Cyberpunk was in a pretty good state. So, both went hand in hand with helping each other. Why do I feel like you're going to argue that if Nintendo had their hands on Cyberpunk, it would have been good from the start?
It was such a weird, pervasive narrative, right? And now Phantom Liberty is here, it's out now, and it feels as if these guys are going to try and pull like a No Man's Sky situation, in which they pretend that the game is somehow good now after a handful of updates that don't really do anything to fix the core problems with the game.
Thank you, Harman, for showing us that you don't do any research or don't understand what they've changed. How about I give you a couple examples? A reworked perk system, a reworked police system, the implementation of car combat, the refining of driving, gunplay, melee, and many other small features that have been improved through 2.0 and Phantom Liberty's release. So what was that, Harman, about not fixing the core features in the game?
You know, the glitches, the pacing, the general structure, the general gameplay. Like, even if Cyberpunk 2077 was perfectly playable, it still wouldn't be a good game.
Oh, that's right. Nothing can please Harman. It would not be a good game unless it was made from Nintendo, or any company owned by them. Honestly, it brings me such joy knowing that no matter how hard the game could be good, it could have good gunplay, good story, good everything. It could be the perfect game. But yet it still wouldn't be good because it's not done by Nintendo. And I will never understand that logic. Why can't you just have a good game? And why can't you just like it in general, Harman? It doesn't need to be made by one singular company to be good. I'm sure you know that full well.
And that's always been like my issue with a lot of like modern AAA releases. Like as long as the game is not completely broken, you're gonna see people like come out and say it's the best game ever.
Welcome to the modern state of gaming, Harman, where everyone accepts trash as gold. But don't you worry, there's always a diamond in the rough. And that diamond would be, right now, Baldur's Gate.
Right? You're seeing people say that with Starfield right now, right? You're seeing people say that with like Baldur's Gate 3,
Fucking knew he would mention it, bro. I'm so hard right now.
right? There are better alternatives to those games, right? They're not particularly special, innovative, or fun.
Bruh, he just said Baldur's Gate isn't innovative. It may not be innovative for storytelling, which now it has some pretty good story in it, and I love the characters in it. But can you tell me another game that has the exact same gameplay, that is at the exact same quality, that is released in the last 5 years? You know, maybe I'm gonna regret that, because someone in the comments is gonna send me like some really, really niche RPG or a porn game.
But because they're the hot flavor of the month, like new release, people are talking about them as if they're like the bee's knees, right? They are.
I don't know about you, Harman. There's not many games that can consistently get over 300,000 people, let alone 100,000 people consistently, daily, for more than a month. Can you name one game that can do that? I can name one. Baldur's Gate.
The biggest games in the world right now because they just came out. And
Oh, not because they released an actual good product that actually respects the player and treats the player like they're actually a fucking human, not a mindless drone.
they're not going to be brand new forever. In fact, they're already quite old and tired and forgotten. And
Yes, games that just came out within this year are now forgotten, because Harman doesn't want to know they exist. That seems like a very reasonable train of logic.
Cyberpunk 2077, it's interesting because it's been so long since the original release. Like, when did it come out? 2020? It's been so long that I honestly don't even remember what this game was like when it first came out. I don't remember.
There is no way you cannot remember. I can remember it. I was there day one to play that. I remember the experience very well because it was horrendous. There is no way you cannot remember it. If you don't, there is something up with you.
Like the hype cycle and like the decline and the irrelevancy. There was so much controversy, so much like ridiculous behavior from the devs and people making excuses for it. Like I remember people like coming out and saying that like, oh, the game works fine on my high-end PC.
That's because the PC experience, Harman, for day one Cyberpunk, was probably the best you were going to get, where every other platform seemed to struggle, which usually it's the other way around. And now I should say this, yes, Cyberpunk absolutely did have issues on PC. I'm not gonna sit there and say it didn't.
Doing typical steampunk like nonsense, right? Pretending as if it was like a console problem and not a problem with like the game as a whole, not a problem with CD Projekt Red. Over promising and under delivering. There were all these like major red flags going into release that the game would be underwhelming, and not a single person listened to me. Like,
Regardless if I agree with you here, Harman, you were not the sole reason why people should not have purchased Cyberpunk, because you were not really reliable yourself. You do nothing more than spout bullshit on behalf of Nintendo, or really just to make them look better. But I think everyone will now look at Cyberpunk and realize to themselves, let's not overpromise, and let's make sure that we don't pre-order games, because honestly, it's a bad idea to pre-order games at this point. Most games are not really coming out complete anymore.
I remember like predicting this game would bomb like in 2015, right? Like I remember people like talking about how they were upgrading their PCs in preparation for this game, right? Like that it was going to be the biggest thing ever, and it was just so laughable and so ridiculous. And
Either you have a bunch of unlisted videos that I've never seen, but these are your oldest videos, so don't try and tell me you were making content back then, saying the most schizo shit you've ever believed.
seeing the game be a failure now, single-handedly driving CD Projekt Red, which last decade was like the golden child of the industry, the poster child for Western game development, like, single-handedly creating this completely false stereotype that like Slavs are like great great game developers.
Honestly, I was expecting him to say something racist about Polish people. It wouldn't be the first time he said something racist about a group of people. Here, look at this clip.
On more is because like typically these people are in like Brazil or some other like subhuman country.
You know, when Harman ever talks about other groups of people or just other cultures in general, you always have to take it with a grain of salt after watching that clip. I feel like at this point Harman could give me a run for my money, from how many times he's probably been banned for saying similar shit like this. I can't wait to get a sizable following, just for them to look into my past in the fronter and be like, is this you? And I'm like, yes, this is a bunch of tomfoolery that you've seen me done. Those 38 bans that you see of racism and homophobia are not real. It's a ploy by the IRS to make me pay my taxes.
For putting out a single game, what happens? Within 5 years, it all collapses. It's all gone.
So you're telling me The Witcher 3 that concurrently has nearly 8,000 players right now, a game that, to my knowledge, does not get modded, is completely forgotten. 8,000 players is pretty good for a game that doesn't really seem to have a huge modding community. Oh, and we should keep in mind, that's on discount for like 17 like Australian dollary dues, so you know, that's a pretty fucking big steal. I would not be surprised if that boosts the player count by a decent margin.
Right? We're never going to get another Witcher. We're never going to get another new IP from them. Like, they're just going to milk the same.
If I am correct, they are working on a new IP, it's just being handled by one of the smaller studios under CD Projekt Red's umbrella. But if I'm wrong, I will take my L and you can laugh at me in the comments.
Tired IPs into the ground, right? They're just going to do the same thing over and over and over again. And people won't even admit there was a problem.
Harman, by that train of logic, you can argue that exact same point of view at face value with Nintendo and Zelda. They constantly make those games, even though they are few and far between, they are constantly releasing them, and Zelda is a very old franchise. And so is The Witcher. The Witcher may not be as old as Zelda, but you can argue this exact same problem and criticism to both of them being old and tired.
Right? Like, it's so weird looking back at like things like the Netflix show, right? For The Witcher, where people pretended as if like Henry Cavill was some great like Geralt of Rivia.
How dare you dog my boy, Henry Cavill. You take that back.
And like it was this completely faithful adaptation of the books, which they did not read. That was like true to the source material and was so.
If I'm correct, CD Projekt Red had nothing to do with the Witcher TV show, as I don't think they were allowed to even come near that or even associate with it. It was more done by the original writer of The Witcher.
Good until they had to recast Cavill because of those darn feminists ruining everything. Like it was completely ridiculous, right? The show was never good, right? You know,
I would say the first season was okay, and everything else just kinda went downhill from there.
the games were never good. The original books weren't very good.
I wonder if you would keep that same energy if Nintendo had their hands on it, if it was owned by them. Would you change that entire opinion? Honestly, I am very curious how you would approach it then.
Right? Like this like worship of CD Projekt Red, like right from the get-go was ridiculous, right? Like
It's ridiculous to worship any company because of any reason. Anyone that worships a company is dumb. This is why you're here right now worshipping Nintendo and sucking the toes of them for them doing nothing to help you as an individual. Either you lack the self-awareness to actually realize that you worship a company, or you don't look at your own content and look at yourself after like, damn, maybe I'm just as bad as the people I attempt to criticize.
like 10 years ago, they were where Larian is now, right? Where people desperate to like avoid Nintendo consoles and avoid like admitting that Japanese gaming is superior have to like just keep jumping from developer to developer. Like,
How are people avoiding Nintendo? They're the largest handheld console you're ever going to get. They're probably the most successful they've ever been. I guarantee most people either have both an Xbox or PlayStation and a Nintendo Switch.
from IP to IP, trying to find something to talk about, trying to find something to play, something to hype up, something to pretend is top tier, right?
That's right, guys. If it's not Nintendo, it's nothing. It is useless. Whatever games you like are nothing without the Nintendo brand. I will never understand how someone can come to this conclusion or have this exact logic when just talking about games. You know, you can like whatever you want. It could be the worst game and you could like it. I don't think I would really care. I may find it funny, but at the end of the day, who really cares? And I never understood why Harman makes a big deal about caring about what other people think.
Something to pretend like that this game is legendary, right? Legendary status, something worth talking about and something worth appreciating and loving and just like showing those darn Nintendo fans what for.
That's right, guys. Everyone's out to get Nintendo fans. You better watch out, Nintendo fans. We're coming for you. We're gonna make sure that you never have a good exclusive again, even though everyone can agree Nintendo slaps hard. Until they start coming after emulators, and then they release a game, and it repeats the process over and over again. I will never understand, Nintendo, why you come after people trying to emulate and preserve a game that is 20 to 30 years old. I don't know what such a bad thing is about it. You're never going to make money from it again. So what's the point?
Right? Like that's what this is all about, right? It's crazy to think about how the same people who like accuse Tears of the Kingdom of being a DLC and a rehash of Breath of the Wild.
I can see where that point of view comes from, though, especially when you don't change much, but mainly just add new features and expand upon what was already there without changing everything. People will get that impression. It happens with almost every game that attempts to do that.
Are like pretending to be excited for Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, the expansion. It's ridiculous. It's too early to say it like this early on, like whether the DLC will be a success. I would say no, because I feel as if
Well, Harman, this aged poorly. Phantom Liberty, the DLC alone, has sold over 3 million copies within, the first week? And that's pretty good for a DLC. It may not be the best for a game, of course. Some people may disagree. I absolutely disagree. And that also pushed Cyberpunk over the 25 million mark for all games sold. That right there is very impressive. But I guess that's what you get, Harman, after making a video trying to shut the DLC down and say that it's going to do nothing. It's going to release to absolute crickets, and that is it. But as you can see, it's done the complete opposite, so I guess that's a skill issue on your part.
Their games as well. Like, just give me the base game, give me the core content, and I won't bother with, like, the DLC add-on content. And considering how bad Cyberpunk 2077 turned out being, like, we may see a situation in which the vast majority of players, people who bought and played the game at release, will not be interested in an expansion.
Harman, you are further from the truth than ever before. There is no way you can tell me that you have not met people that are interested in Phantom Liberty. Everyone I know is very interested in Phantom Liberty, and the hype was worth the wait as well. I can absolutely say this. I have played through the DLC many times now, and I absolutely enjoy it. It is honestly a very good DLC. It's worth your time. If you have something like, $30-40 to drop on it, depending on where you live, I would recommend buying it if you have Cyberpunk.
Because it's been too long. They would rather just play a new game, like Tears of the Kingdom, than like mess around with this stuff, right? There are just so many better options than a DLC expansion to a subpar product.
I don't know, Harman, you can tell that to everyone that has played the game and that DLC that Cyberpunk is absolutely worth paying for now. Even though it's still missing features that should be there, and hopefully I wish maybe, just maybe, they add some of the features with some of the final updates. But there's one thing that this game has over Tears of the Kingdom that I'm sure Harman is foaming at the mouth thinking of: the modding community. This modding community will make Cyberpunk last so much longer.
Right? It's kind of the Baldur's Gate 3 thing all over again. Like, why would I care?
Harman, Baldur's Gate is not a DLC, you dropkick. Well guys, I think that's it for this video. Harman goes on for a little bit longer about how Edge Runners is bad, so I'm gonna leave it there. You all take care, leave a like, subscribe, become a member, do whatever. Have fun, have a great day.